Hi, today I'm going to show you how to paint a cactus in a basket. I'm using a 12 set Schmincke watercolor paint that I purchased at Wet Paint in St. Paul, Minnesota. And then I'm also using a Winsor Newton Series 7 paintbrush. This is the paintbrush I tend to use in all of my paintings. And I'm starting out using the chrome yellow hue lemon mixed with the Helios green. I don't believe you can actually get this specific set anymore, but you can find similar watercolor sets at various art supply stores. But I don't believe they sell this one anymore because I don't believe the walnut brown in this set is actually available anymore. I usually start out with a layer covering the entire shape that I'm making, like the cactus. So I'm doing an undercoat or an underlayer or an underpainting. And then while I wait for that to dry, I start on the basket, and I'm using the color Titanium Gold Ochre. And I'm using that as the base layer or the undercoat for the basket. And while that's still wet, I'm dipping into the walnut brown and dabbing that along the edges just to create some depth to the basket to kind of give it more of a cylinder perspective. So adding shadows to the edges and imagining that the light is coming from the front. And then I'm adding more of that titanium gold ochre to the middle as a highlight. And I dipped into the Helios green and the Helios turquoise to create this bright, vibrant green that I'm adding to the tops of the cactus to add a little bit more dimension and depth. And then going in with that green at the bottom and then creating a smooth gradient, mixing those two colors together. And I went in with the Helios turquoise, and I'm just adding that to the tips to give it more interest and more dimension, just to make that gradient stand out even more. Now I'm going in with that walnut brown to fill in the dirt in the basket. I went a little over the line there, so I was just grabbing some water and wiping away the paint that I didn't want. And then I let it completely dry before I moved to this step. So now I'm adding a shadow to the lip to give it more dimension. And then I'm going in with the Helios green to add in some shadow so you can see, again, more dimension, make it look a little bit more 3D. And I dipped into the water there to clean up my brush to make that shadow blend in to the rest of the cactus to make it look a little bit softer. And then I let it completely dry again. You can see too how faded the colors get once it's completely dry. Because with watercolor, that's just how they work. Most of the time they get duller as they dry, so the true color you lay down right away is not going to be the true color once it dries. And I'm going in and I'm adding more detail. I added these stripes just to add a little bit more visual interest to the cactus and to brighten up those colors a bit more. And the color I'm using here too is that Helios green again. Now I let it dry a little bit more. It's not completely dry at this stage because I was a little bit impatient, but I grabbed my Faber-Castel Polychromos colored pencils and I'm going in and just adding some details to the painting. So like the prickly points on a cactus, I'm drawing those in with this pencil. One thing about these pencils is that they are light fast, but they are light fast as long as you don't use watercolor on top of them. So my last step when I'm painting is adding in detail with colored pencils as I see fit. And I do recommend doing this when the paper is completely dry. You can tell it's still wet because when I push down, you can see that the paper is a bit warped. And so once it dries, it will flatten again. But this was just me being impatient. So right there you can see the paper being pressed down, and I'm just randomly putting little pricglies all over, not really thinking too hard about it. And now I'm gonna add more detail to the basket. So again, here with these lines, I'm just putting them in randomly with really no thought or purpose. Well, I mean, I have a purpose to add more detail, but I didn't really have a plan, so I'm just randomly placing them in. But I am trying to make sure that they're throughout the entire basket and just not in one area. But it's pretty random. And then I'm adding some marks into the ground as well, or not the ground, but the dirt, just to add more texture and variance in the color, just to give it a little bit more three-dimensional look. And so that's about it for this one. Let me know what I should paint next and follow along if you want to see more. Thanks for watching. Bye.